get so mad, there's no controlling me. My thoughts get so bad, I'm like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show.
You picked up on something that I wanted to ask you. You said that all three of you are different, and it's something that I've said time and time again. Anytime I get a chance to speak, that obviously my mission, if you like, or my give back to the world, this is about raising awareness around diversity, inclusivity, and equity, starting with our workplaces, but it will trip into everyday life. And it stemmed from experiences that were negative, but I'm so overwhelmed with the response and the will and the commitment from people right across our industry and right across the globe who do want to make things better and actually want to think, well, actually, you know, the humor we had in the 70s just doesn't fit where we are today. And obviously, I don't want to get political either today, but even when you look at what's going on in the world, and just if we can talk about things openly and encourage understanding, I hope that will lead to more respectful workplaces and more respectful society. I know that's my utopia, right? That I'd love it. I'm also realistic, so I know we can't all have the same views. It just, life would be so, we're not robots, we're not on, you know, built on a factory line that we're all going to have exactly, and that we have to have exactly the same views. So I'm also not about, I hope, preaching to people, because it's not about changing people's views. It's actually working out, well, why does that language work for you? Why do you feel the need to use something derogatory, and understanding where that person's coming from? That to me is more useful than having a slanging match with somebody, or telling them what they can and can't say, because ultimately we can do and say whatever we like within the realms of the law. And one thing that I've said is, where people kind of, and some organizations where they've highlighted that they found it difficult to recruit a diverse workforce, for example, just taking one thing as an example. That is not an excuse for not doing something about it, because whoever you have, so even if you three grew up in the same town, were exactly the same age, went to the same school, you would still have three very different experiences, because how much can you be the same? You know, we've got different families, and your family values will come in. If you're religious, political, whatever, you know, whatever, or not, all those things are what enriches the human race. And I'm so glad, Mark, that you said it's because you're all different and you're bringing, but what an amazing synergy to bring together people who are different and actually make it work.
The reason we've kind of got a good dynamic is because all three of us are different. You know, we all have different perspectives, we all have different lifestyles. You know, as most of you'll see on the video, I'm a Blackburn Rovers fan, but you know, it's not great. But then, you know,
somebody
we all have different. Somebody has to. Thank you. But you know, we do.
I won't even go down that route. my team is not doing well. Yeah. So
I'll avoid football conversations.
I won't even. Yeah, I'll save that for somebody else.
Again.
Yeah. And that's it. And you know, that's what brings the group together. And so when we add somebody else in, no matter who they are, it adds a different perspective.
Although we are different, there's still, you know, a glaring similarity between the three of us. As you know, as three white men that work in AV, there's still some overarching similarities. So anything that can add to that diversity of conversation is really important to us, because it gives the people that are interested in us or interacting with us a different perspective. Yeah, and that's our whole thought process and what we want to do moving forward. So anybody that's interested in getting involved and joining us, you know, we want to make sure that they're given that opportunity too, and you know, anything that's going to sort of add a different narrative to what we're discussing,
I mean, one
we
thing
find that interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I think one thing that you've got there is you've also got geographical regions across the three of you. I mean, Mark, in terms of being in the north and this kind of perception of, and obviously in the last couple of years, and certainly in the politics of the UK, we've seen a lot of controversy around things being London based and not northern based. And certainly in AV, there is a pretty heavy bias on events being London based rather than, and working for a northern company myself, I'm more aware of it now than I was when I worked for a company that was southern based. What are your thoughts around that, about that kind of north-south divide? And that's a glaring thing for our industry to address.
It is, and I think it's for me. I mean, I've worked for a company that's a mile away from me before. I now work for a company that's 225 miles away. During the pandemic, it did make people change the views on, and it kind of leads into this diversity that look at skill sets, look at experiences, rather than where people are, where they live, how can they get to offices. And I think companies have evolved, and Northamber AV hiring me must have been completely strange, 225 miles from an office, and it would be for every other company. But I'm seeing more and more events now stagger themselves across the UK, and it's no longer even a north and a south divide. People are going, right, actually we need a southern event and a Midlands event, which is actually the north, and then going, we need a Scottish event as well, because there is even that, there's a lot of companies, a lot of people further on that even for a northern one that I would class as northern is a long trip. So they're really staggering that and going, right, we need to have a diverse footprint across all of them, and covering that off actually is better. And I think you get more out of the shows. I'm happy to travel like anybody is, and I think it's part of the world. The experiences you get when you're traveling, you'll never see them again, But again, it's just bringing that together. And I think you're absolutely right with what you're saying. You don't notice it until it's kind of glaringly in front of you. Yeah. But some expos have already started to split and have a north and south. But if you go back even 10 years, they had north and south ones. And I think it was because a lot of the northern people actually enjoyed going to the southern ones because it was different. Unfortunately, we don't have a city like London. Manchester's as close to me as it will be. But it's the only place I'll go where I'll get taxed £55 by going down one road. But
Just come for the Waitrose, like that's all it is.
Yeah. Absolutely, for the Waitrose, that's what we come down for. But it's an experience, and you enjoy that. And like you said, I've looked at events and gone, I'd love to attend that event. And yes, it's close by to this city, and John, I've never been there. Let me get an experience of that city whilst also attending a work event. So balancing that social and work life together, which I think has become more apparent.
Yeah.
And I do think Southerners are guilty of thinking that if there's an event in the north that everyone in the north can easily get to it. They don't realise how far apart places are.
You wouldn't get many from Cornwall. You wouldn't get many from Cornwall driving to Essex, which is when you got from Blackpool to Hull, and there's a huge difference, and the infrastructure and road networks and things like that to get in these places. It's something that we touched on, I guess, in the first episode around sort of regional trade shows and regional events becoming more prevalent, where you have a smaller footprint of people that actually can see it, and hoping that does come back more, because then you're closer proximity to a group of people that can travel.
I guess and again, I think that there's pros and cons to everything, and that there's an obvious expense to it, and running multiple events and so on. So for organisers who are actually investing in that kind of event, but would that narrow the people you get to meet if it's do you see great? So if you have been to a London event, Mark, for example. Compared to, or have any of you been to a regional versus?
Yeah, I used to run regional events in a previous life, and
what do you see as in terms of actually getting a collective, or is it when something is so big you end up only seeing a handful of people anyway, so it doesn't matter? Do you get more out of it by being regional because there's less, or?
Correct. I think regional in with it being closer, easier travel, you know, I think more people wish to attend, and so more people go to the events. I think when it's more one place within the UK, if you have, you know, 10 people from Newcastle that really want to go to an event that's in Reading, that's, you know, that's a 6-hour drive down, it's overnight stay both days, it's the cost element. Whereas if they said, right, they might send 2 to that event, whereas if it was up, say, Middlesbrough, you go, right, it's an hour away. I don't actually know if it is an hour away, but it's an hour away in traffic. We can all go and be back in the same day, and everybody can enjoy it. You can stagger times. And I found the UC Expo and things like Channel Live that used to have a northern and southern one, you see different people at both. You'd never see the same. Whereas, like you said, when you have a single one, you see everybody there, but because it's a single event, you don't have the time to network and meet everybody, share your ideas, share where you think it's going, because there's so many people there. And so I think splitting them out gives them geographical presence as well as more footprint through the door. They might not get 5,000 people attend day one, but it'll be 3,000 day one in the south and 5,000 maybe in the north in day one in there. So actually they've doubled nearly. So it's giving that extra footprint for them, I think.
And what do you think about access issues? Because I think one thing that's become a lot more, or is I hope becoming more of a thing for people organising events, is being accessible to those people who physically cannot get to an event. Mm-hmm. Because what we've seen is we've seen lots of events that went completely digital. Mm-hmm. While we were in lockdowns, and on both sides of the pond. So there were several shows in America that went completely online, virtual. Some were better than others. And but I know a few people who physically, one person in particular springs to mind, who is now wheelchair bound, mm-hmm. is still working, but actually physically cannot get to an event, but doesn't mean that they wouldn't like to participate mm-hmm. or learn or find out what's going on. So where do you see that? Do you
I think the world's got used to getting hybrid, and now we're getting with the word hybrid. I think
the word hybrid.
Oh, apologies, but okay, multi, meta, whatever word you want to use. But we're used to working in a more digital environment now. We're having a meeting, video chat now that very likely 2 years ago at least would have been all together collaboratively in a room with some cameras and recording us. And
in 6 months' time, because that's when we all had a day free, right?
Exactly, and we were able to sort of put this together in a relatively short amount of time. I think that events will need to be catering for multiple audiences. I think in general we'll see more of events that are catering for multiple audiences. I've seen, having worked for a US company previously, and they are really good. There's some amazing AV companies in the States that do regional shows, and they go to a location within a certain proximity to a major city, and they'll get lots of people that will travel to that. And I think as we've seen American investment get involved in the consolidation, certainly in the distribution area, but also in integrators from investment from the States of marketing teams that know what they're doing from a regional show. And although we are able to travel, you know, within a day across the country, it's a long time of traveling still for driving. So they're used to creating a regional event at a hotel with pop up, and now with this convergence of the digital world and the physical of being able to go to that event, hopefully more local to yourself with less travel and more useful conversations, to bring in the regional digital aspect of that will be really, really key and really important, so that their content can be consumed by more people, that the talking points can be discussed. We're seeing some of the projects that we kind of talk about around the monetization of it also. The event organizers or people can access and pay for access to a live event via an online subscription service or payment service to then watch a West End show or watch a concert, and on a smaller scale that will be manufacturers or people that wish to attend a show, but maybe just in the digital form, are not excluded from that. They can still be included as part of the digital discussion, and they'll, from a revenue perspective, it will be important to people. So no one's going to leave dollars off the table, and everyone's going to make sure that they're included in it. So I hopefully will see that emergence and balance between digital and physical.
Technology's catching up. Sorry, I was going to say, I think the technology is catching up with what we want to do as well. So there's always been, I think, maybe a bit of a will, but it's been quite hard. You can take something like VR, for example, now, where you can have at ISE, you could have a couple of cameras set up, and people can legitimately log in through the VR world and actually not touch, but get quite close to a tactile response in terms of seeing what products are. So you can get sort of access to scale and understanding how it sits within a room and a space. And 5 years ago, that technology wasn't there, but now it is. And it's night and day almost, with just VR as a specific example for where it is. And then that bleeds into lots of other things as well, because that's quite good for sustainability. That's quite good for the environment. Maybe we don't need to fly 3,000 miles to a trade show in Taiwan or to Las Vegas, for example, because you can kind of just put a little helmet on in your front room and you can do some of it. Now, obviously, it's not exactly the same, but if you look forward with the way things are going to change, it's potentially moving there, and it drives everybody forward. So I'm excited. I'm a bit of I'll throw this in now, I'm a bit of a nerd for VR, so bit of a hobbyist.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Key word that you found there is transformation, though, Iffat, because when you look at transformation, it's the way the world has been transforming across it, and from a physical presence to a digital presence to a virtual presence. The technology is there to offer this now to everybody, but it's actually getting that technology to work so that they feel more of part of the show. And I think if you look at where, like Andy said, then the technology's gone in 5 years, it's exactly down to what you said at the beginning. People had different dreams, people had different ideas, people had different choices that have brought this transformation in technology that has then transformed how we do it. Electric cars, could you imagine 10 years ago someone saying electric car and you go, never, I'm not plugging that into my 3-pin socket for a day so I can travel to the shops and things like that. Someone had an idea and went, I'm going to make this a reality. And that choice and that change enabled transformation of the world. So that's what's currently happening across the world in many things. And we're more talking product now, but it applies to everything in human race, everything in life. The animal world does the same. It transforms and adapts to what is required. And I think that's what we need to do now. And it's that enablement piece of, if we run a show now, could we have a virtual booking program where someone could dial in and have a virtual meeting with someone with a headset and a camera and showcase it for people who can't attend? Because I think with some of the events, it was very kind of speaking into it. Nobody could have that one-to-one feel. And I think that's the next adaptation of it, is you can have a one-to-one meeting with the people that are there and you can physically feel like you're there without actually having to move away. I'd attend more events if I could do that. I love this. My own.
I think it brought the conversation around the metaverse and what the metaverse means. I mean, out at CES in January, it was everywhere, like the metaverse, and no one really kind of knows what metaverse is, what it means, or how that translates, certainly into distribution life that we work in. But I think the fundamental concept of bringing people into a virtual world to allow them to access more information and content in a more physical way, on the base level of that, should allow access for everybody, and it should be tailored and made to with that sort of that intent to allow everybody to consume the content in the same way that gives them the same experience on a personal level. So and I'm hoping that is the future of tying all of that in.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I
I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.